If you've been saying I'll start when I have more time for more than 6 months now, I was you. This is just you procrastinating. And the habits that are keeping you stuck right now will be the ones keeping you stuck a year from now. So there are 5 that I want to share with you today. And once you see them, you won't be able to unsee them. So I've been working in my 9 to 5 since 2015. And after 10 years of living this life in a loop, I realized that I wanted more. And over the past year and a half, I've been building an online business from absolute scratch. I had zero business knowledge, no clue what I was doing, no audience, and still on my part-time job. What I've learned in that time is that there are 5 habits that completely separate the people who actually build something from the people who end up staying stuck in that endless loop of research. But just a quick heads up before I get into it. So if you're in a 9 to 5 right now, you're feeling stuck and not quite sure if you can do it for the next 30, 40 years. I have a small private community built exactly for this. It's a 5-stage method for you if you want to start building something of your own alongside your 9 to 5 without quitting yet. And I'm running a special Easter founding offer right now. The full details are in the description below. So habit 1 is building something that works without you. So stop trading time for impact. You want to build something that works when you're not working in the future. So you might be thinking, why does this even matter? You've worked so hard. You've got all the qualifications. You've done everything the right way. And somehow it still doesn't feel like enough. And that's not a you problem. That's a ceiling problem. In a 9 to 5, the ceiling on your time is a ceiling on your income and impact. No amount of skill, dedication, or extra qualifications changes that ceiling. So the question that you need to ask yourself is, how do I actually build something that runs or can run when I'm not clocked in? So I chose my career for stability and not passion, if I'm honest. I got all the postgrad qualifications, I did more work, keeping my mind busy, but I didn't get paid anymore for doing all that extra work. And then I started noticing people that are younger than me with far fewer qualifications and without even having a degree, earning more through online businesses that they were actually passionate about and actually enjoyed. And that was the moment that something just clicked. I realized that they're not working harder. They were just working smarter. They'd learned to build one-to-many instead of one-to-one. So the online course model is a one-to-many over the other models out there, like e-commerce or dropshipping. It has potential to reach hundreds of people without you showing up every day. Now, I'm not saying that it will be like that from day one. Obviously, you will have to put a lot of work into it. And at the start, you're building and learning. But the point I'm trying to make is that down the line, you'll be able to scale it this way and automate it as you go. So that's the difference. And that's why it's so important that you choose the right business model. You'd use the knowledge that you already have from your career and package it in a way that you can help others. And that way, it will work while you're still in your 9 to 5. So ask yourself, am I building something or thinking of building something right now that could eventually run without me? So really, you want to choose the easiest business model that you could choose that will run more effortlessly in the future. And that's why I want you to start thinking about this now, even before you've even started building it. The next habit is playing offence with your time. So, every spare hour in your life is either an asset or a liability. So stop treating your downtime like a default off switch. I'm not saying not to chill or relax. It's fine to rest and it's 100% needed, especially as a woman. But be intentional about when you do that. A lot of women think that the problem is not having enough time, when in reality, the question is, what are you actually doing with the hours that you have? Are you just sitting there consuming endlessly, doom scrolling without actually creating or taking any action? That's just procrastination with better branding. I was in research mode for months, generally months, and I thought I was moving forward. But in reality, I was just watching videos, saving them, and nothing was actually moving the needle forward. I was productively procrastinating. I was watching videos about how to build a business instead of actually building one. I told myself that I was learning and preparing and that needed to be done, which, don't get me wrong, to some extent it is. But, it wasn't. And subconsciously, I was scared. I was so scared that if I tried this thing and I failed, what would people say about me? They'd say, I told you so, that this was all a waste of time. But I acknowledged that fear and I accepted it. And then I put it to one side. The fear of what my life would actually look like if I didn't try was actually worse than the fear of failing and not even trying. I'm not saying that I've made it. I have a long way to go. But looking back, I'm so glad I took this risk and it's got me to where I am now. So think of this habit this way. An asset produces a return, and a liability costs you without giving one back. Your saving account sits there and an investment will grow. Your time, that works exactly the same way. Creating content, creating a module, a lesson, having a conversation with a potential client, all of that's an investment. And consuming without acting, that's draining. Just sit back for a second and just pause this video and look at the last 5 spare hours that you had, maybe last weekend. How many of them were spent doing something that's pushing you forward? If the answer is 0, then, that's your starting point. It's not your ceiling. And habit 3, this is probably one of the most important ones that I've learned, is to design your environment, not your excuses. At the end of the day, systems beat willpower every single time. So build your environment so progress happens automatically. Motivation is a feeling, which at the end of the day is short-lived and is unreliable after a long day of work. Willpower runs out, especially when you're building on the side of a demanding job. And waiting to feel ready or feel motivated is just a slower way of you not starting anything. So I came from a background where the path was clear in life. Get a good career, keep at it, get more qualifications, and be happy in your stable 9-to-5 job and be grateful for it. But when I made the decision that I wanted more and I started building something of my own, I knew that telling everyone around me would invite other people's opinions. And those opinions, even from the people who care about you and who love you, can really impact what you want to do before it even gets off the ground. I knew that I had to separate this work from home life. So I found a separate office space to work on my business and focus. A place where I could call mine and where my brain knew that this is just time to focus. 0 distractions. I haven't made it all fancy and nice and, put pictures up everywhere. It's just a plain, simple room with a computer screen, basic equipment, just simply what I need. So I'm not distracted and I get the job done. And I have to say that these 2 decisions, finding the space and having no interruptions, the silence, it changed everything. I went from months of kind of paralysis and overthinking that I wanted to do something to actually building. So here are 3 practical changes that work. Firstly, like I said before, find a dedicated workspace. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to go out of the way and find an office, if you have a family to take care of and, you need to be at home. It could just be a small area in your house, a small nook, or create a dedicated office space in your house. Or it could just be, you working in the kitchen. Or it could be a specific cafe that you go to. Anywhere which tells your brain that this is focus time with 0 distractions and interruptions. It's time for you to build. That's what that space needs to tell you every time you go there. Secondly, block time out in your calendar. Your building hours are not free time. Treat them like that. Treat it like a meeting to yourself that you can't cancel. It doesn't mean that you have to be up until 1 or 2 a.m. working every day after work. Even just 30 minutes to an hour a day is enough to start. And lastly, having boundaries with your environment. If you don't protect your time and energy, no one else will. So ask, what's one change in your environment that you could make this week that removes the need for willpower and just makes it easy for you to go and get the job done? Habit 4, closing the knowledge gap. The gap between where you are and where you want to go, it isn't talent. It's the knowledge that you were never taught. We were never taught about mindset. We were never taught about how to build a business. We were just taught that, you had to get a good job to live a good life. So, if you're a professional who's highly trained in your field, you probably have very little to zero business knowledge. That's not personal failure. That's just what the education system was designed for, and is the reason why the majority of people in this world, they never start a business. So the gap is the opportunity. Most people will never go and get this knowledge, and that's your edge. If you're watching this thinking, I want more, you've already began this journey. And when I started my mindset journey, I realized that I was living under deeply rooted paradigms. I genuinely believed that I could never be successful in business, or that I could even ever consider running one. That's because as a child, I'd seen people around me struggle with businesses, and my subconscious had accepted that this is the core truth. Only when I began to understand that my own invisible scripts were running my decisions did I realize that I did have the power to change them. And the second layer was business knowledge itself. When I started, I didn't even know what a business model was. And once I began understanding things and learning the basics, things started to change. So here are 2 layers of knowledge most people in your world simply don't have. Layer 1 is the mindset layer, paradigms. These are the invisible belief systems running your decisions. Until you see them, you will keep self-sabotaging everything without knowing why. Things will never work out, or you'll never make the right decisions. And you'll just think that, this always happens to me. And you'll never understand the why. And secondly is the business layer. Understanding what an offer actually is, what a business model actually looks like, and how to actually create an income starting from zero. Neither of these layers are taught to us properly growing up. One targeted investment in the right knowledge will literally shortcut years of trial and error. And lastly, habit 5, protect your energy over effort. We live in a culture where hustling is kind of promoted. Your energy is the most valuable resource when you start building alongside a 9-to-5 job. This matters because you can't build from emptiness. When you're running a full or part-time career and trying to build something on the side, grinding harder, that's not the answer. You want to work smarter. Being exhausted, it leads to sloppy decisions, scrapped ideas that were probably actually really good to start off with. And you don't end up publishing anything or taking action because nothing feels ready. That's the monkey brain, not the creative brain. So building this business has cost me time that I could have spent with others. And what I've come to understand is this, that if I'd accepted my 9-to-5 as my forever, that would have cost me more. 5 years ago, I would never have believed I was capable of any of this. What changed wasn't the hours that I worked, it was the hours that I chose to protect. Instead of overworking, sometimes you just have to take a step back to avoid that overwhelm and actually clear your head mentally before you can actually move forward. The people watching me now won't see the years that I put into this from zero. In the end, they'll see the results and they'll wonder how I got here. But in reality, the results came because I stopped treating exhaustion like a badge and started treating energy like a resource. So there are 3 areas that you should protect. Firstly, your sleep. This is non-negotiable, even when you feel behind. Decisions made from exhaustion cost more to undo than the time you saved staying up and doing that extra 2 hours of work. Secondly, limit time with people who drain you with doubt about what you're building. Just because they think that you can't do it doesn't mean that you can't. You want to protect yourself from this. Those type of people take that positive energy away from you. And they'll quietly continue to take more and more from you than you realize. And lastly, your mental state. Be intentional about what you consume, what conversations you engage with, what you allow to take up space in your head. So ask yourself, who and what right now is draining your energy? And what would it look like to protect your energy this week? So to summarize, habit 1, build something that will be able to work without you in the future, something that you can automate further along down the line. A one-to-many business model beats a one-to-one business model. The second habit is playing offense with your time. Think of creation as an asset, and consumption without action isn't. And habit 3, designing your environment. Having a dedicated space for work, somewhere where you can just focus with zero distractions, will allow you to reach your goals faster than you think. And habit 4, closing that knowledge gap. It's not about talent, it's about the information that you haven't yet found. And lastly, habit 5 was protecting your energy. Remember that you can't build empty. So those are the 5 habits. You don't have to shift all 5 at once. You just have to pick the one that resonated with you the most and start there. Now, as I mentioned at the start, if any of what I've shared today sounds like a missing piece, if you're in a 9-to-5 feeling stuck, wondering whether there's a different way, I have a small private community where you'll find the 5-stage method: mindset first, business, branding, marketing, and then learning about AI. Step by step while you're still in your 9-to-5. And right now, I'm running a special Easter offer with founding member pricing and a personal one-to-one blueprint call within your first week of joining. The link is in the description below, so be sure to check it out. And if you want to know more about what's inside, check out this video here. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And I'll catch you in the next one.